I'm Brandon Amoroso, and this is the D2Z podcast, building and growing your business from a Gen Z perspective. Hey everyone, thanks for tuning in to D2Z, a podcast about using the Gen Z mindset to grow your business. I'm Gen Z entrepreneur Brandon Amoroso, founder and president of retention as a service agency, Electric. And today I'm talking with Lindsey Rosenberg, who is a fractional CMO and marketing consultant that Electric has actually worked with in the past. And she primarily focuses on consumer-focused brands and startups. But you're going to be able to do a better job of introducing yourself to the audience. So I'll let you take it over from here. But thank you so much for coming on the show.
Yeah, thanks for having me. So my name is Lindsey Rosenberg. I'm a fractional CMO, mostly to consumer-facing startups. And happy to be here.
Awesome. So before we dive into some of the topics that I know we want to cover today, can you give everybody just a high level on what a fractional CMO is and does, and specifically like what you're focused on at the moment?
Yeah, so a fractional CMO is a really great solution for a lot of companies that don't necessarily have either the bandwidth or the financial ability to hire a full-time CMO. And for me, what a fractional CMO means is someone that can come in with a deep level of experience in either the category or in marketing as a whole, that really understands how to build marketing teams, strategies, competencies, the base work basically of what a brand needs to grow. And they can come in at any time for a company. Sometimes it's for startups that can't afford the CMO. Sometimes it's for companies that have been around for several years that just can't quite figure out, their marketing at that stage of the business. And it's a really great solution for people that want a short-term solution for marketing that, they haven't quite figured out yet.
Got it. And what types of brands are you typically working with?
For me, my clients actually fall into two camps, and I've kind of found a specialty in what I call legacy brands. So these are brands that have been around from 5 to 10 years, sometimes even longer, and they're trying to figure out their business again, right? They've been around for a while. Maybe they started in like straight retail 10 years ago. They've tried to figure out e-commerce. They're kind of like trying to figure out their spot. And they often come to me because they want to grow or scale or pivot. Maybe it's a rebrand, maybe it's introduce a whole new product line, and they don't quite know how to do it. And so I often come in and give them like a new way of thinking that maybe they haven't thought about in the last, several years, and try to figure out how to execute that. So that's camp one of the brands I work with. Camp two is usually startups. 0 to 2 years. I usually only work with companies that have a physical product already, right? They're not just in concept stage. And they know what they've built. They know what they want to do with it, but they're still trying to figure out like the right marketing strategy, brand strategy, and like positioning.
Got it. Is there a particular like brand that's really top of mind for you that like listeners could use as a reference point in terms of like the types of companies that you typically are working with?
Yeah, sure. So one company I worked with, I think it ended like a year ago, was Revive Kombucha, which is an amazing brand out of the Bay Area. If it's in the legacy camp, they've been around, I think, 12 years. And they really pivoted from being like a straight kombucha brand in a glass bottle to a canned, healthy beverage company. And their product was amazing, but they were still trying to figure out like, how do we shift from being, this like kind of uber healthy, brown glass bottle product and make it into more of like a cool hip, like an Olipop or a Health Aid or something, and fit in that more modern category. And so I help them work on developing the messaging and branding and e-commerce strategy around their canned product line. And it was really exciting because like they were thinking about their product in a whole new way, how to talk about it, how to reach their audience, how to evolve their social media strategy, because, it's so fascinating when you come across these brands and they have Instagram followers from like the dawn of Instagram. And you're like, okay, like, what do we do? Like, how do we, reposition our audience to make sense when perhaps their old audience is dormant? And so that was a unique thing that we got to do and really like invigorate a new base of customers.
Got it. That makes a lot of sense. What are some of the trends that you're seeing? Because you've obviously been in the space for a while, and there's been some large macroeconomic shifts and also just changes in e-commerce as a whole. What are the transitions that you're helping your companies go through during like 2023?
Yeah, I'm hoping we will all return back to like more traditional marketing strategies. And when I say traditional, I don't mean like the things we've always done. I mean like brand building at its core is general awareness, right? It's not TikTok views, it's not Instagram likes, it's not even conversion rate on your D2C site. It is the presence of all of those things all at once. And I think we all need to return to a strategy that's about overall brand building and community building. And so I think, especially in the last 2 years, everyone's been so focused on their ROI, their conversion, giving all of their ad money to Meta, right? Their whole marketing budget would be going to Meta. And I feel like we need to return to like a more, a strategy that taps a lot of different areas, right? Like I'm even recommending to clients, like try radio, try local print, try college advertising, like go to the areas where your customers are that aren't just on the little screen in their hand.
And the screen in their hands is becoming ever increasingly crowded.
Oh my God. I mean,
with competition.
I go through it when I'm on my own Instagram. It's just shocking how many ads I'm seeing. And yes, they're targeted, and yes, they're really well done. But at the end of the day, I think we all get shopping fatigue, and like we really want to be part of brands again, in an authentic way. And I think that's even more true with Gen Z. Like they can't be influenced in the same way that millennials may be influenced. They're more aware of how they're being marketed to, and they're really like willing and able to react and find things that truly have meaning for them.
I think the authenticity is really key in brands, and is why I think I'm seeing more and more founder focused brands be successful. I don't know if that's a trend that you've seen on your end, but half the time it feels like it's the founder first and then the company second in terms of the website messaging materials, all the social media content and ads. I think that's becoming increasingly important as customers look to attach or associate themselves with something that they can get behind. And it's so much easier to do that with a person than it is a logo.
I couldn't agree more. I would say that not every founder should want to be the face of their company, though. Like there's definitely circumstances where the brand can speak for itself. But it certainly helps to put human faces behind a brand. And what I often recommend is for my founders that don't like to be on camera, the ones that aren't necessarily like the native, entertainer that's on screen, what I often recommend to them is like surround yourself with influencers and creators that reflect back the audience that you want to create, because those are the best people to represent you.
Yeah, I have gone through that evolution with electric, because like I don't particularly, well, actually now it's kind of fun, but historically I wasn't like jumping at the bits to get on camera or to do speaking stuff or anything like that. But I think it's just sort of the reality for the most part of what you need to do for your business to be successful. Like on the agency side, I would say probably half of our business comes through content or things that are done from like a personal brand standpoint, but it funnels into all the work that we built on the agency side. And you see that more and more with other Shopify Plus agencies or marketing agencies, whatever it may be, where they're founder led. Same with D2C brands, same with a lot of other industries. And I think historically, at least all the mentors I had when I was in like high school, they didn't do any of this stuff.
Right.
Like they preferred to be silent, like in the background. Maybe they don't even have a LinkedIn. And sometimes I was told, I remember I was told by somebody like the most successful people are the ones that don't have LinkedIins. I don't think that could be further from the truth now, at least for those like up and coming. You can't just sort of sit in the shadows.
I think it really all comes down to relationships. Like in any business you're building, whether it's B2B or B2C, like it really is about the relationship you're building with your audience or your customers. And sometimes that needs to come from the founder. Sometimes it needs to come from another source. Like it just really depends. But I feel as I have grown as a marketing executive, as an adult, as a parent, like it all comes down to the relationships that I have in my life, because that's what opens the doors for me. And I'll tell you, I fundraised for my last company, and I can't tell you how important that lesson became, is that like the companies that are raising, tons of money for their businesses, it's all about the relationships. It has a lot less to do with the product, a lot less to do with the the category or the buzz or whatever, but it's who they know. And that can really open the doors.
We're going through that process right now for a product that I've been building for about just over a year now with my brother. And especially this early stage, there's really nothing to sort of grab onto in terms of metrics or anything other than the people and the relationships. So if we didn't have that, then we would have nowhere to start. So it could not be more important, especially at this stage.
Yeah. And I would say, like, especially for like a lot of your listeners who may be, emerging startup brands themselves, like when they're thinking about building out their teams or agency partners or influencers, creators, like whoever they bring into their network, like tap your network, tap your relationships first for the kind of people that you want to bring into your business. Because I think one of the mistakes a lot of entrepreneurs make is they don't speak out about what they need. And so they kind of like get stuck, right? They're not like thinking about, they get insular, right? They just think like what's in their own head. But the more you can talk about your needs and wants as a business owner or a marketer, like the better off you are. So like join the Slack channel, join the WhatsApp group, like get involved with the community that you want to be a part of, because that will be the resource you need to, find the relationships that will benefit your business.
Yeah. And that's why I try to approach everything, whether it even is technically like traditionally you'd be looked at as a competitor. I think everybody, like, I look at everyone as a potential advocate or somebody who could help and assist in some way, whether it's personally or professionally. And so, like, I'm going to dinner next week with another Shopify Plus agency owner who does literally the exact same thing as we do, but it's not like it's this winner takes all environment in any vertical, I don't think.
Yeah.
And you can learn a lot more from each other than you can by like hoovering everything to yourself and thinking of it as like this very hyper competitive landscape.
Yeah, so true. Like there's enough business for everybody. And again, it all comes down to like the relationship, like the right fit. I have often referred clients who come to me and they're either too big or too small for what I do. And I'm happy to share the wealth. Like, let's find you the right partner, because I know at the end of the day, that experience will be positive enough for you to refer somebody back to me, down the line. And I think especially when you're working with small e-commerce brands or growing e-commerce brands like you and I often do, like we're all going somewhere, right? If this isn't our first business, it'll be our next business. And like, we really want to like help everybody out because we're all in this together. And at the end of the day, like, this is so fun, like it's, this isn't heart transplants. This is a fun space to be in. It's constantly changing. We're selling really cool and interesting products. Like, let's enjoy the ride.
Yeah. Burning bridges is definitely not the way to go in any case.
No.
So I know you mentioned brand, and I'm not on the brand side at all. We focus on really customer experience and retention marketing, which brand has an impact on that for sure, but we're deploying retention strategies that are, I would say, more in the weeds, like tactical KPI driven, like a Klaviyo account, not necessarily brand. So what does brand mean to you? And how are some of the ways that companies that are just starting out can help create that? And then I guess my follow-up question to that would be, only because it's like a pet peeve of mine, is how do startups go from having the brand in their head to being able to disseminate it to a growing and scaling team? Because I can't tell you how many times I've heard from other people's in the industry or other agencies or other employees, whatever it may be. And it's like, there's one or two people at the company who know what this brand is, but nobody else can seem to get what the copy and tone should be or the imagery. And that causes a lot of friction and can almost paralyze a business because they can't get anything out the door because nothing is on brand.
Yeah. Well, I think everyone needs to look at their brand as a story. Everything is storytelling, no matter whether you're selling water in a bottle or, diamond jewelry. Like, it's all about the story that you're projecting to your audience. And I think at the end of the day, we need to look at brands as fluid entities that evolve with their customers and customer feedback, right? So I'll give you a great example. So in addition to my consulting, I actually own my own e-commerce brand. It's called Dryft Sleep, Dryft with a Y, like drift to sleep. And we make a product called mouth tape. And when we launched that product last year, we were like dead set on it. It's like, this is a women's sleep product. We are so focused on women. Well, guess what? We found out that 40% of our customers on our e-com site were men. And we feel like through testing that even a larger portion of the women buying them were buying for their male partners. And so all of our language had to evolve with that. And so for us, brand meant at the core of it, we were about delivering great sleep, delivering a positive, gentle sleep experience for others. But what we learned is that gender needed to be completely taken out of that conversation because it wasn't relevant to our audience anymore. So we changed all of our language. We got rid of any colors or words that might feel too feminine. We made it more genderless. We made it more about the power of sleep rather than female sleep or female wellness. And that took our sales from, I mean, it was a rocket ship because we realized that, that's who our audience was. So to bring it back to what is brand? Brand is storytelling to the right people at the right time. And that can evolve over time as well. And so what I always recommend is that brands start with a brand book that is a very loose documentation of who we are, how we talk to people, and what we say. But I never, especially in startup land, like from 0 to 3 years, I never like to make brands stick to that brand book because I think you're still learning. And especially when you only have a few products in the marketplace, like you simply don't know how your audience is reacting until you have more customer feedback. So constantly talking to your customer is the most crucial way to build a brand, I think, because you're going to learn and you're going to adapt. I would say once brands are more mature, absolutely, you stick to that brand book like nothing else. But I think very few brands, especially in the changing like digital nature of social media, like they don't need to be that hardcore, right? Like you need to have a general feeling about who your brand is and how you make people feel. But that also brings me to like the other half of your question, which is like, when to change, how to know, like, it's okay to pivot. Like it's okay for your TikTok to feel different from your Instagram, to feel different from your email, because you're hitting people in 3 different places in their life. And so sometimes the messaging just makes sense to do it slightly differently. That doesn't mean you're going a 180, like colors should be consistent, right? Imagery should be consistent, like the style should be consistent overall, but you don't need to like be verbatim across all your channels. And like one thing that I actually witnessed recently that I really wonder who the marketers were behind it is the brand Recess, the drink, the like calming drink. And they just launched a new product line with a totally different set of photography. And it's like very different than their very like, I don't know, ethereal, like 90s-ish kind of look. And it's so different that I really wonder, like, are they testing a shift in their brand right now, like a different look, a different feel, or are they like evolving the brand? So I think it's really interesting. Like you can do different things. You're not going to lose your audience when you shift and change. Do you know what I mean? Like the product is what at the end of the day is going to always keep people back. But I think it's always important also to realize when a brand has like run its course. Like sometimes if people aren't loving it, if they aren't passionate about your product, that is when you need to know, like need to either, dive further into what your brand really means or pivot. And pivot can mean a brand refresh. It can mean new packaging, new website skin, like it can be a lot of different things. But I think the most important thing is like constantly evaluating what your brand means to your audience and then shifting to where you want to go.
How do you do that in practice? Like actually evaluate whether or not brand is resonating and whether or not or how your audience is responding to the brand?
I think honestly, you need to hire a good marketer. Like they're good marketers know both in their gut feeling and in the data how a brand is performing, right? And I think a lot of that has to do with its LTV, right? What's your reorder rate? Like, are people coming back again and again? Because if a brand doesn't resonate strongly with people, they'll jump ship, right? They'll just move to another product. And I think like skincare and beauty is a perfect example of that. Like if a brand feels so true to you, you will try every product in their line. But if like the brand isn't strong enough to hold you in, like you're like, oh, I'll get a serum from somewhere else. Do you know what I mean? Like, so it isn't a black and white area, but hiring a really good marketer that can like explain that to you, explain like the data versus the organic component of your business, your clicks, your likes, whatever. Those, I think you have to take all of those like together and look at it, but then you also just need to talk to your audience. There is no substitute for customer interviews.
I'm shocked at how many brands don't do those more.
Yeah.
Even like super early stage too. When we used to work with a lot smaller Shopify brands, I'd go into their Klaviyo and create some sort of a segment to pull out like VIP customers. And even if they were a tiny brand, they'd still have at least 50 customers at a minimum who had ordered from them, I don't know, 5 times, 10 times. Not once had they ever been communicated with in any sort of way whatsoever. And like, just like if you order from a company 10 times, you'd have to assume that maybe 5% of those customers will hop on the phone with you and tell you why are they doing it? What's the experience like? How can we make it better for you? And I can't remember which company it is, but still one of the founders of one of these really large consumer facing brands now does like 5 customer interviews a week, just to try and get an anecdotal pulse on how things are going and how they can improve.
Yeah. And I think, and the flip side of that, it's what you're doing for the customer too. And one thing that I always recommend, especially small brands do, is like, when you find your VIP customers, like write a handwritten note for their package, right? Like, or send them a personalized email once a month or something. Like, find a way to create a tighter, more intimate relationship with those VIP customers, to, even if you don't have the time to talk to them, like do something to make them feel really special. So like if you have a subscription model, I always say like write a handwritten note, include a freebie, like whatever it is. Eventually you'll scale it. Eventually you can bring in the right software and automate a lot of those things. But like if you're small enough to, be close to your warehouse or be close to your fulfillment, like try to reach out and like hold the hand of your VIP customers, because they will tell you so much.
Yeah. And I'm shocked at how much data and information customers will give. Like, we set up post-purchase surveys a lot of the times, and it'll be like 50% plus of customers will reply and give us information willingly that's going to ultimately help improve like their customer experience. That's not an insignificant amount of people that are willing to buy in. I think that buy-in increases even more when brand is resonating and they're bought into the story and the vision.
Yeah. And I would say another way that brands can really interact with their audience and for learnings is go to the reviews. So go to the actual reviews you're getting on your site, reach out to those customers, positive or negative, and talk to them about why they felt that way. And it's a great learning.
What are some of the, I guess, well, one thing that would help me is understanding the size of the companies that you are typically working with. In terms of team member count, because I think the growth stage of a business in terms of like how they go and build out their team is really interesting. So like, at what size headcount are you typically jumping in and helping these companies? Yeah.
So generally the clients that I work with are under 10 million in revenue, and that and it's shocking, but you can have teams of 2 or 3 people with $10 million brands. Just depends on, how they built the business, but generally I come in and there's 1 or 2 marketing people in-house. Sometimes there's 0, and sometimes I work directly with the founders, but often my clients have multiple agency partners and they don't know how to optimize them. And that is really where a fractional CMO can be so helpful. And it's kind of one of my core competencies is the first thing that I do when I start working with a brand is audit every vendor, agency partner, freelancer, and I interview them and I just talk to them. It's not just about the numbers, right? You can definitely look at the numbers. You need to look at performance. You need to look at long-term performance, but you also need to look at them from a personality perspective, right? Like, do they fit the culture of the company? Do they understand the vibe? Like, are they elder millennial, account executives, and it's a very like Gen Z, Gen Alpha brand that they're trying to focus on. Like, do they have the resources and understanding to know how to reach that audience? And I think that's especially true on the organic side. Like, you need to be able to understand your audience. So I'll even audit content creators, email marketers, everything. I mean, anyone who is on the marketing side, I will meet with, interview, assess, and then make recommendations. And sometimes, you can certainly mold the team members you already have and make them better. But I often find that like in the early stage of a company, when they only have two or three marketing people, they're jacks of all trades, right? They're doing everything. And they're probably only good at one or two of the things they're doing, and they're handling 10, And
Yeah.
so I always like to assess, like, how can we push a person into an area they're really strong, and then go find the experts to fill in the other things. So like, and you and I have talked about this before, like I love to hire email marketing agencies or freelancers specifically, because like you need to be in 10 Klaviyo accounts to understand how to make a single Klaviyo account effective. Right. But if you're just doing it on your own and you're not auditing other businesses and seeing other analytics dashboards, like you're just not as aware of how to make it better.
Yeah, I think holding other third parties to task is really crucial. And if you don't know, you don't know. Or if you're just focused on other things like product development, and sure, it'd be great if you could just sort of entrust that everybody's going to do their job and get it done correctly, but that's just not the reality
No.
of the situation.
No. And I honestly think that's why a lot of people like hiring me, because they see that, okay, Lindsey works on 5 other brands maybe, and I generally work with 2 to 5 clients at a time. And so I can see like commonalities and shared resources across all of my brands that a full-time in-house marketer would not see. Right. So I can be like, oh, this client, we use this software, and this client is trying this performance, tactic. And there's shared learnings there that are just so valuable that I think especially startups don't understand.
And they're still getting to work with you versus like somebody on your team or something like that.
Exactly. I think like high level marketing expertise is very needed at a lot of companies. And I completely understand that it can be an expensive resource, especially in the early stages. But like, even if it's just an hour with a CMO or an hour a week or something, and they do nothing else, but you just ask them a million questions and you talk through what your problems are, and you guys, you find solutions together, like that can be an amazing resource for early stage brands.
I think something that first-time founders or startups sort of learn along the way is like you could pay somebody $100 an hour to do something and it'll take them 20 hours, or you could pay somebody $1,000 an hour and it'll take them 1 hour. And it's like, well, who would you rather work with? But that's something that we've definitely gone through in the past before, both personally as well as with the agency. But like, if you were going to spin up a Shopify storefront and you've never done it before, sure, you can learn how to do it. Like at this point, I've probably seen like 300 plus net new builds in whatever period of time. So it's like, it would take 2 minutes to answer some of your questions that you're going to have to dig for and go through. So that time to value and speed and going to market. I can't remember who posted it, but somebody was like, you're not paying necessarily for what is being done in that moment. You're paying for all the work that had been done prior to that by that person, so that they can then give this to you in such a quick and expedient manner. Which I think is scary in some sense, like to look at some of these numbers that you'll see from other agencies or other consultants. But if you can be strategic with it, it can be a huge value add.
Yeah. And I think also like starting off on the right foot with a business, like with the right resources, is crucial, right? Like building the right Shopify storefront from day one is so much easier than fixing a messed up sort of Shopify, down the road. Like it makes a huge difference. I think it's the same with email marketing. It's even the same with like your organic, right? Like how you build your social media, like yes, it can be changed, of course, but like do it right from the very beginning. Like find the right resources, because otherwise you're going to be fixing it all down the road.
I think social might even be more important, just because you're dealing with something that has a much longer horizon for return on investment. It's not like putting money into ads or building a website. And so if you miss out on your first year of a company and you don't have like your organic social strategy down and you're not building on something, you've just lost that period of time. And same would go for SEO and content, because SEO and content takes forever. I mean, we just started getting inbound leads from SEO say probably about a year and a
Yeah.
half ago, maybe. But
Yeah.
I built the website in early 2018. So what is that? I don't even know what year it is anymore. But it's probably like 3 to 4 years before we saw any sort of real
Yeah.
organic Google traction.
Yeah.
But we were building the foundation and laying the bricks or whatever the term is for getting to that stage. And
Yeah.
now is where we can sort of just pour gasoline on the fire and then use content and repurpose it into different channels. And it all just sort of helps accumulate upon one
Yeah.
another. But you got to build the foundation at first to be able to do
It's
that.
funny, whenever I come up, like I get a lot of pre-revenue companies that come to me and they're not ready for me. But what the first piece of advice I always tell them is like, don't build your Shopify site first, just write a blog, like just put one page up, put as many blog topics as you can, use ChatGPT to write them if you need to, like build the SEO while you're still building the product, because it will help you so much later on.
Yeah, I need to dig even more into sort of the ramifications of some of these prompt-based like AI tools like a Chat GPT and how they can help augment not only the work that I'm doing on a day-to-day basis, but the work that like our agency is doing.
Yeah.
And it's definitely not at a place right now where it's replacement, but in terms of making you more efficient and able to like just do the work of 10 people in one. And the potential there is extreme. I always think of like the movies like why am I blanking on the name? Like Iron Man, for example, where he's got that video board and he's just telling the computer what to do, but he doesn't actually have to type or he doesn't have to do anything. Like I feel like that's where we're headed, where you're still in the driver's seat, but you're not having to do all this manual stuff. Like, oh, like, hey, go create a calendar invite for this time for this person, and just be done with it versus having to. And it sounds like that example sounds nominal, but little things like that add up over time, where you're just doing a lot of manual and admin tasks. I think those will be the first to go, and then from there can get more into some of the like creative side of things.
Yeah, I use AI on a regular basis for my clients and for my own website. Like whenever I need to create content, it always starts with like, I write a really great synopsis, right? Like, or I have my clients write a great synopsis. It all starts with your expertise to begin with. Otherwise, the prompt is useless, right? You don't want to create generic, boring content, even if it's SEO rich. Like you really want to deliver something great to your audience. So I think the key thing is knowing what you want to talk about in a really cohesive and intelligent way, and then using ChatGPT to like make it into a longer form content, basically. But you also have to be really careful, of course, about plagiarism and where it's pulling content and check it. So it's a time saver in some ways, but you have to know what you're talking about first.
Yeah. And I think it's great for like writer's block or the YouTube channel, for example, like, hey, give me 10 ideas for YouTube content in and around the Shopify ecosystem. Then it'll spit out 10 and like, then you have 10 ideas that you can run with, maybe make modifications to, and then you go film and record. Like you still have to have the expertise, but you're at least getting that initial hurdle out of the way. Which for me, at least, is usually the biggest thing. Like once you're in a groove and you have the ideas flowing, then you're off and running. But it's like that first step, which is the most challenging.
Yeah. And I would also say, this is a funny one, but I think an untapped resource for a lot of small businesses is virtual assistants. Whether that's like a dedicated one or you use a service. I use a company called Duckbill. That's a startup that my friend is a senior executive at. And I outsource the most odd little tasks for my business, for my personal life. And it makes a massive difference for very little cost. And I think that's an underutilized resource of startups. Like farm out the little things, right? Especially if you're like, okay, I need to research, a new packaging supplier, or I need to research new, software for something. Like find someone has a very reasonable hourly rate or an outsourced assistant to do it for you, because that can be an incredible resource for you as the founder to refocus your time onto like higher priority items.
What is the name of that company again that you said?
Duckbill.
So I can include it in the show notes. Duckbill?
Duckbill.
Duckbill. Alrighty. I'm going to probably reach out to them after this.
Oh, please do. I love that.
The thing for me about VAs is I've never really been able to crack the consistency with one, or I think it's definitely something that I would need to dig into again, because there's people I know like yourself who get a lot of value out of it. And I think the more you can delegate and hand off as a business owner, the better, so long as it helps you with your own efficiency.
Yeah. I mean, I think it's just like hiring any other employee, it's got to be the right fit.
Yeah, that's true. Well, thank you so much for joining us today. Is there anything else sort of in terms of tips or tricks or things that people should be thinking about that you want to highlight?
Yeah, I would say the last thing is, if marketing is not your specialty, find someone who can help. Like, it is totally okay to, find a senior executive of a brand that you admire on LinkedIn and go ask them for a coffee date or 15 minutes of their time. Like, I think marketers are generally, we're great storytellers. We're very open. We want to help. Like, ask us for help, ask us for advice, take the free 30-minute phone call. That's what I offer on my website. Like, just get to know us and ask the right questions, because you don't know what you don't know when you're a startup brand, and you can really avoid some major financial mistakes by hiring the right people at the right time. And that includes agency partners like you. It's like, it goes back to relationships too. So marketers often have great portfolios of companies that they've worked with in various positions that they can recommend. So even if that's all you ask for, like, tell me the right, agency to talk to, that alone can save you thousands of dollars and be an amazing relationship builder.
I can't even imagine trying to vet agencies without getting warm intros or anything. I mean, there's just.
I can't tell you how many intros I get from agencies who are like, this brand is not ready for us at all. Like, go, come to Lindsey, and then I help get them ready to hire that agency, right?
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for coming on. Before we hop off, can you let everybody know where they can find you online if they want to reach out?
LindseyRosenberg.com.
Nice and easy.
Yep.
Well, thank you again. As always, this is Brandon Amoroso. You can find me at brandonamoroso.com or electricmarketing.com. And thanks everybody for listening, and we'll see you next time.